Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lunch Hour Sports Podcast. Here with your hosts, Jacob Smedley,
Sam Betts,
Justin Reedhammer,
and Nathan Romanot.
With today's special guest,
Javon Edmonds. Isn't Jacob great at that introduction? And you never get tired of hearing it.
Oh, thank the love from the special guest. So love the appreciation, guys. Thank you. A special guest coming on, giving me some love, but the great introduction from everyone. But Sam, what do you got for us in the world of baseball?
Well, Jacob, as you know, baseball season has concluded. We just finished up the World Series a few days ago, and we have our winner. The Braves took it over the Astros in a 4-2 series. We had the Braves, who were kind of the underdog, kind of oddball team. No one really kind of saw them coming, especially in the early months, like May and June. They only had 3-4% chance of actually making it to the World Series, and then somehow through the offseason, they got some really good trades. They picked up some really nice guys, and they were able to kind of make a push, especially after Ronald Acuna Jr., their main star, went down after tearing his ACL. We also had the Astros, who were definitely painted as the villains, as per usual, since their World Series win in recent years kind of came up as them cheating and kind of having that stigma with their team for the past couple of years. So they were obviously the villain in this scenario, and the villain went down. If we look at all the games here, if we go to game one, the Braves obviously took a very commanding standpoint as they won 6-2 in their first game. Charlie Morton, the starter for that game, unfortunately, only was able to pitch about 2 innings because he took a line drive to his left foot and broke his fibula. But he was able to kind of stay in there for another inning or so, and was able to even strike out 2 people on that broken fibula. So good job on him for staying in.
He apologized to his teammates for not playing longer too.
Oh yeah, definitely.
What a warrior! What a warrior!
He's a beast, man. Quite a beast. He did have some help, though, later in the game, as Jorge Soler and Adam Duvall were able to hit some home runs, and then Eddie Rosario, who was the NLCS MVP, as well as Ozzie Albies, were able to go 2 for 5 to keep the bats rolling. The Astros, Framber Valdez gave up 5 earned runs in 2 innings, so wasn't helping his team up at all. Carlos Correa kind of had a ground out RBI, and Chaz McCormick, who's the Millersville prospect, not too far away from my school here at Lock Haven, was able to get a fielder's choice RBI as their only run. So Braves kind of took that commanding lead. Game 2 was a completely different story, as the Astros kind of blew out the Braves 7-2. Max Fried in 5 innings gave up 6 earned runs. Freddie Freeman and Travis Darnall were the only ones able to score. The Astros definitely came back as Jose Altuve was able to homer, and Jose Siri and Martin Maldonado had some RBIs. So we kind of see a back and forth. We kind of thought it was going to be a back and forth going around, and I kind of thought the Astros would somehow maybe take lead, but no. The Braves in Game 3 took it 2-0. The only thing I have to comment on here was Ian Anderson came out here. The young rookie pitcher did really well as he went 5 innings and had 4 strikeouts. Didn't even give up any runs. So good on him. Jake, what did you see when you saw this Braves team coming in? What did you think before we move on to some of the other games?
Yeah, and I think, if Javon would like to touch on this as well, looking at this Braves team, I mean, looking at the playoffs as a whole, they were underdogs to begin, I thought, against the Brewers. Looking at that team, when you look at that pitching staff, offense had some questions. Me and Javon have had this conversation before, Sam as well. But the offense for the Brewers concerned me, and the Braves took advantage of that. Their depth that they acquired late in the season at the trade deadline. Then the Dodgers, where, I mean, it was the Dodgers. Many people picked them to win the World Series at the beginning of the year, at the middle of the season, and certainly going into the playoffs, of course, while they had the wild card game involved. I mean, there was a lot of talent on that team, but looking at the way the Braves offense played, I think really stood out to me, especially the trade deadline moves, and really now I think is going to place an emphasis even more so on the trade deadline and how teams can really upgrade. Because you look at guys like Adam Duvall, of course, was previously with the Braves before going to the Marlins. They traded for him again. Jorge Soler, Eddie Rosario. I mean, these guys came in and really didn't even look like they were missing Ronald Acuna Jr. I mean, the way these guys appeared in the playoffs. I mean, each one of them, you had different guys stepping up. So, I mean, their offense was, I think, we knew that they were going to have a good bullpen pitching staff in the playoffs, but I think it was the surrounding pieces around their stars, the guys that they traded for, that really stood out.
Yeah, and Jacob, I'd say to really expand on that, you look at what Atlanta's going to be next season. They'll retain all those guys. Acuna will eventually come back from injury. Mike Soroka, another pitcher to go in that elite rotation, comes back from injury. So I think the Braves, I mean, they set themselves up. They proved that last season's 3-1, mishap against the Dodgers was a fluke. They went up 3-1 this year, sealed the deal. The Dodgers went back to the same team they were pre-pandemic, which was most loaded roster in baseball that couldn't get the job done. And the Braves are now set up in an easy division to have an easy path to the playoffs each season and keep contending. So I think really just a stellar job by them. And it just was another indication to teams where it's if you think you can compete that year and you're a piece away, make the moves at the trade deadline. I look in that same division and I look at the Mets. They were aggressive. They just didn't perform on the field. And I look at the Phillies, who Bryce Harper had a great season. And if the Phillies would have got him some help pitching, hitting somewhere on that team, they very well could have made it as a wild card team too. So that was just another sign of be aggressive at the deadline and good things will come from it.
Yeah, the really good takes, guys. I really appreciate you commenting on that. As we move forward, we move on to game four as the Braves took it 3-2, a very close one. The Braves were able to come back and score enough runs to get past the Astros there. Austin Riley was able to come in clutch he went 2 for 4 with an RBI single, and then Dansby Swanson and again Jorge Soler, both of them blasted home runs that really helped them get past their Astros. Jose Altuve was able to hit a home run, go 2 for 5. He was probably the main offensive guy on that team at that point. Game five, a lot of people thought it was going to be over. Everyone thought the Braves were going to take it. On the contrary, the Astros ended up coming up 9-5. It was all close. I think it was 5-4 until the Astros scored 3 runs in the fifth inning to take the commanding lead. Adam Duvall in the first inning hit a grand slam to kind of take like that major lead. Framber Valdez ended up giving up 5 earned runs in 4 innings pitched. Freddie Freeman was also able to home run to make that score 5-4. And then Carlos Correa was able to come up with an RBI single and an RBI double to kind of help push that lead in the favor of the Astros. And then finally we go into game six. The Braves took a commanding lead. They said they wanted it more and they took it 7-0. You had Max Fried, 0 earned runs, 6 strikeouts, and 6 innings pitched. Really good performance by him. Jorge Soler with a 3-run home run, and I mean he crushed that ball out of the Minute Maid Park there. Wasn't even close. It was gone from the moment it left the bat. Dansby Swanson also hit a 2-run home run, and Freddie Freeman came up with an RBI double and also a home run as well. The Astros, the starting pitcher gave up 3 earned runs in 2 innings. That was about all you could say for that team at that point. But I mean, that's when the Braves kind of took it. And like you guys said earlier, I think it really came down to getting those guys at the trade deadline. Eddie Rosario, who's been a fairly decent player his entire career, is able to play multiple positions, was a really great pickup. Jock Peterson, Jorge Soler, and Adam Duvall all fit into the category of outfielders who have the power bat. I mean, and that came in clutch too. Jock Peterson was able to crush balls. Jorge Soler being a former home run leader during the regular season. I mean, you saw that ball that got hit out of Minute Maid Park, obviously, and then Adam Duvall, a really versatile guy too, able to crush it. So, I mean, good job on the Braves. Congratulations to them, and now all we have to do is just wait until next season for for more baseball to come around.
Is that a genuine congratulations from a Phillies fan
I
over there
mean,
before I get to Javon?
I really would have liked to see the Phillies go to the playoffs, especially when they were in first for like a week. but I mean, good. Well,
We
it's a
got so
congratulations to
many
them. They
down
defeated.
here
Yeah, they
that are
defeated
just
the villain.
hating on
Hey,
the.
I mean, they defeated the villain. That's all I care about. Good job to the Braves.
There we go. See, Javon, there's another one of us that can appreciate the Braves actually, a competent front office going for it in a division.
Yeah, reasonable Philly fan. It's hard to come by. It's hard to come by those. So when I see one, I instantly, you go down. It's a good one in my book. No. I think the other thing I was going to add is if you think of all of these labor negotiations that are going to go on the off season, I think we're going to be in for a long lockout. But one of the things that's most likely coming out of this off season is a universal DH. And you think of teams in the National League who have set themselves up for that, the first two that should come to mind would be the Braves and the Dodgers. So that's just another thing from that trade deadline, where it's not only to set them up for the future of last season, but for the future of baseball, period.
Yeah, I definitely think. I don't know. I mean, I'm a traditionalist. I've always just like seen the pitcher hit, but I definitely think a universal DH will be on the rise in the next season or two. I think people are really going to press for it. They might even try it in some of the other leagues, like maybe like the Atlantic League, like the Independent Baseball League, or like the Pioneer League, where the MLB has been trying out different rules and kind of seeing how they've been going. So, I mean, if they want to try out a universal DH with those partner leagues and people press for it, you could definitely see it happen in the next coming seasons.
Ah, man, the Bartolo Colon fan club, Sam Betts one in no universal DH over here. I mean, you look at it, we talked about kind of the Braves, but looking, I guess, on the Astros before we kind of wrap up the World Series conversation here. This was really the last dance. I mean, you got the Bulls and basketball from the nine. I mean, this was kind of the end of their window where you have all of their best players. You got Carlos Correa, who just recently the 5 year, I think it was 180, if I can remember off the top of my head, contract that he turned down. You've got Bregman, who was kind of injured in there. Altuve hit a homer. You got kind of the youth movement as well with Kyle Tucker, Jordan Alvarez kind of supplementing their older guys. But yeah, I mean, they have some good young pitching I think will keep them around, but it seems like we're starting to see those guys that were there a few years ago when they won it all kind of starting to head out of town.
Yeah, and like, and you know how, I mean, we all know how that goes. Like, people want to move on. And like you said, they have really good young pitchers. Framber Valdez was really good this season. Like, he would pitch really well during the regular season. It was just kind of during this World Series
Yeah.
moment where he didn't have his best performances. But I mean, you have Carlos Correa kind of declining his options. You could see some of the other guys maybe going into free agency in the next few seasons. So it's kind of a waiting game to see if the Astros can pull out like another playoff team or if they're going to sink and someone else kind of rises above them.
Yeah, I look at the Astros and I'm like, you're in the city of Houston. That's I want to say that's the fourth highest market in the country right now. So I think when that's the case and it's baseball with no salary cap, when you've got a talent like a Carlos Correa, you have to spend the money on him. And I don't blame him for turning down that contract. You see the money guys like Bryce Harper, Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis, guys like that are getting in, 5 years, 180 million. That's an insult for a guy of Carlos Correa's talent, really. But so, I wouldn't be shocked if he walks to go somewhere that will pay him. I think the Astros are still deep enough. The pitching staff is so young that it's only going to get better with time. The one team that I do think about instantly once I hear, Correa is most likely leaving, the Athletics. That team has underperformed for seasons now. This is their window to finally win the division. I'm not counting last season because it was pandemic shortened. They've got to finish the job next year. Matt Chapman can't have another down year. Him and Matt Olson have to be what they were supposed to be, which was the best corner infield duo in baseball. And Matt Chapman didn't hold up to his end of the bargain last season. I look at that team. I know they just lost Bob Melvin, but the Astros are coming down slowly. They'll rise back up eventually, maybe in the next 2 years. But Oakland, that's a team. They got to get it done. And I mean, you got to give the Vegas fans something to come out for because that's where they're going eventually. I think Oakland won't have any sports teams for the next 30 years, really, because the Athletics, they're leaving. But next year, they have to take that next step and finally win a playoff series because it's long overdue.
Yeah, definitely. And they've been close to a lot of playoff chances like in the past couple seasons, even like getting close to like the first round and even making it to the first round, but have struggled, can't have not had the playoff success. But I feel like Carlos Correa, I know they had Elvis Andrus there for a little bit and he performed all right. He's a decent player, but I mean getting like a top caliber athlete in Carlos Correa would definitely make that team and definitely help with a push to the playoffs.
Yeah, especially when you're talking about kind of the void left by Marcus Semien with that team after the year he had with the Blue Jays and the kind of void that they had at shortstop as well. But yeah, just whether they get him or not, I think the Athletics have been a team every year with the talent that they've had. Seeing if they can return certain guys, and are they going to be willing to spend that big money? It just hasn't been. It's Javon's shaking his head.
Yeah, and
I
I
mean,
wasn't
I think.
even I wasn't even throwing out the possibility of them getting Correa. I was just saying they have to win the division once he leaves Houston. That's
Yeah.
I wouldn't even think about Oakland spending money on a Carlos
Yeah,
Correa.
yeah,
No.
yeah.
And another team out west that's coming up, Seattle. They're only going to get better as the years go on.
Oh,
So
yeah.
next
Julio
season,
Rodriguez, yeah,
yeah,
he's
Oh,
coming.
I
Ty
love me some
France.
J Rod.
Yeah, so Oakland they have no choice. They have to get it done in the 2022 season.
Yeah, and of course, you got the Angels there too. If they ever actually get talent around Shohei and Mike Trout, I mean,
If
maybe they
Rendon can stay healthy,
pitching.
yeah, if Rendon can stay healthy and they spend on pitching, that should be a wild card contender.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Well, that should do it for the baseball section. As always, Sam, great work, and Javon chipping in as well. We turn things over to Justin, the NFL. What has been going on the past few weeks?
Thank you, Jacob. Now, a lot has gone on in the past few weeks with the NFL since we've last touched on it, so we're going to cover it all and get to some news, some recap. Of course, we'll do all the stuff, so let's dive right in. Last we left off, we were at week 5 of the NFL, and I'm just going to cover some more of the significant matchups here. We had the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. At this point, we thought this is the turn of the tide in the AFC. The Buffalo Bills dominated the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead, 38-20, the final score here. Just a great overall performance by this Bills team.
Yeah. Oh man, starting off with this game, Bills, Justin's favorite team against the Chiefs, who have really, boy, looking at the Chiefs this season, I don't know what one word to describe this Chiefs team. But yeah, at the time, a statement win for the Bills. I think, I mean, you're looking at them as the top of the AFC. You've got them, the Ravens, got the, AFC West, you've got it looks like the Chargers kind of at the top there. But yeah, a big win for the Bills against the Chiefs. And I mean, it kind of was the beginning of the, period where it seems like the Chiefs figured out. The Bills kind of were able to exploit some things. I know that they weren't able to do certain things before that too, but defensively, Chiefs, it just hasn't worked this season.
Yeah, the Chiefs have really struggled this year. Patrick Mahomes is not looking like the Patrick Mahomes we're used to. During that game against the Bills, I remember sitting here watching it. It was a messy game. It was rainy, poor weather, and that Chiefs offense could not get anything going against the Bills. And the turnovers, which have really plagued Mahomes in that offense this year, really came into effect in that game. And very uncharacteristic from the Chiefs, and they still really haven't been able to turn it around thus far, which sees them behind the Raiders and the Chargers currently in that AFC West.
Yeah, I know coming into the season, some ridiculous poll came out with, GMs around the league. Oh, the Ravens and Lamar Jackson. This is the year everyone figures them out. Well, those boys down at M&T are 6-2, and the Chiefs are the ones that have been figured out. Take away Tyreek Hill. You pick your poison. It's either Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce. Just take one of them away and leave Patrick Mahomes with one option. And it hasn't been working. That defense stinks. Mahomes, his IQ, starting to get exposed. Remember, he went on the shop one week and said he wasn't even reading defenses until his second or third year in the league, and he's still learning. That's very evident this season. He looks like this is his rookie year. So I think the Chiefs, with that bad defense, they've only got two legit threats on offense as far as pass catching. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he can't stay healthy, and it seems like the Chiefs' offensive line, they're good blocking the pass, but not blocking the run. We're looking at the possibility of the Chiefs missing the playoffs this year. That is very real. Now, granted, there are 7 teams to get in. I think the AFC North sends 3 teams, so that's 2 spots already. And I think the AFC South, whoever takes the second place, not the AFC South, the AFC West, excuse me, whoever takes second place over there gets the last wild card spot. So, I mean, we're looking at the Chiefs and Raiders competing for the last playoff spot. So that rivalry, feels like 1978 all over again.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. I mean, because you kind of counting out, the Patriots and the Bills too, because one of them could
and
be
the
going for
Patriots,
that.
yeah, that's another team who's in that running. So Kansas City, they've got to tighten it up.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for Kansas City to make a wild card spot at this point. They're really going to have to make a push forward. Another game, though, that I would like to cover before we move on to Week 6 is the Cleveland Browns and the Los Angeles Chargers. This is a very tight game, but at home, the Chargers got it done 42-47, the final score here. A huge offensive explosion in this game, and the Chargers were on the receiving end of the win.
Yeah, looking at this one, the Browns and the Chargers, I think we'll definitely go into more of the Browns drama in a second, but I mean, their offense, hasn't necessarily been the problem. Of course, with Kareem Hunt going down, I mean, Nick Chubb was out a few weeks too. They were able to take care of business. Nate, the known Broncos fan, shaking his head over there after the Thursday night game. But I mean, look at the offense. It hasn't been the problem. It's been the defense at times. Of course, you got Myles Garrett going all out with the Halloween theme and everything like that. But the secondary hasn't been good. And of course, once we'll kind of get into more of the present day games, a big win this past week, I guess it will be when the episode airs. But I mean, this defense hasn't been consistent enough to place them in that tight division where a lot of people thought they would be.
Yeah, that shake of the head was more towards my fantasy side of things. Losing Kareem Hunt.
Oh, sorry.
That really hurt. Losing Kareem Hunt, not gonna lie, he was having a pretty good year up until that point. But yeah, again with the Browns, I feel like coming into this year there was high expectations based off of what they accomplished last year, especially with the blowout win over the Pittsburgh Steelers in the first round of the playoffs. But looking at them as of right now, the defense been mediocre at best at times. The offense, while they've had some good performances, they've had their struggles as well. As we know, I'm sure Justin will mention, releasing Odell Beckham Jr. at this point. So, and at that running back spot, with Kareem Hunt going down. But again, we'll see where this team goes. They lost a close one to the Chargers, and they're still in that mix though in that AFC North.
All right, then we'll move on to the Week 6 matchups where we had the Los Angeles Chargers and the Baltimore Ravens. This one I thought was going to be a lot closer than it actually was, but the Baltimore Ravens at home got it done 6-34, the final score in this one. Such a crazy game. I did not see it coming. I thought that Justin Herbert was going to put up a fight, but really there was just nothing from that offense.
I actually chose my Ravens to lose that game. And yeah, they won 34-6 heading into the game against Cincinnati. I saw that game and I'm like, okay, the Ravens might be legit this year. Like, this might be the year that they go to the conference championship, lose in heartbreaking fashion, and then bounce back the next year. Because the Chargers, you think of them, at that point in the season, you thought they were a top 3, top 4 team in the AFC, clearly thought they were the best team in that division. And then for them to just get embarrassed, I mean, I can't chalk it up to jet lag. I know it was a 3-hour time difference, but they had the whole week to get used to that. So, yeah, I did not expect that, especially with how bad the Ravens secondary has been this year. Like, they're the worst secondary in the league statistically this season. And you look at the Chargers, who have, arguably top 3, top 4 wide receiver tandem in Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, Jalen Guyton in the slot, Austin Eckler's a good pass catching back. You've got Jared Cook at tight end. I thought the Chargers were going to have a field day, offensively and be involved in a shootout, and they only put up 6 points. So that game was very rewarding for a Ravens fan.
Yeah, I mean, and you kind of touch on the Chargers. I mean, Javon just listed out the entire depth chart. I mean, I don't know, maybe a few other guys in there, but it's been up and down for their offense. They struggled in that game against the Ravens, but just as we touched on against the Browns, that put up 49 points, I think. But I mean, just they got off to that 4-1 start. Justin Herbert kind of establishing himself in year two. Nate's guy from Oregon, Justin Herbert, developing.
Yes, sir.
the
Ducks, baby.
I mean, just the way he is, but he had the bump in the road, and I think that we're going to see some of those games where a team gives them a different look. I don't know if that's maybe exactly what happened in that Ravens game, but struggle a bit, and I mean, then he'll have games like he did against the Browns, where he'll show out and look like an MVP candidate. But I think that version of him, that kind of MVP, maybe not exactly MVP level, but I think he can reach that and obtain that. I think that's more who he is than the game we saw against the Ravens.
I would say one thing we do have to stop doing though is making MVP a quarterbacks only award. Like
Yeah, yeah,
it's so
exactly.
easy for
Agreed.
quarterbacks to enter the MVP conversation, and I'll just look at the other position players. Like last year, I thought Stephon Diggs should have been MVP. He made Josh Allen last season and set every record for a receiver in his first season with a new team. This year, before he went down, I thought Derrick Henry was a very capable, contender for that award. I had him as the front runner before he went down. That's one thing that I don't like. MVP becomes a quarterback award. The Heisman becomes a quarterback award. Not as much as the NFL MVP, but it still has that tendency. Like that's one aspect of the NFL, the favoritism shown toward quarterbacks. I just can't stand it.
Oh man, did I see a smile over there from the Bills fans talking about Stephon Diggs, the MVP last year? I saw a little smile over there. You can't hide that on the Zoom.
I think that Stephon Diggs was a good candidate for the MVP award. I think that he could have been top 5, for that. Make a case for him there. The reason these quarterbacks they're looked at so highly though is because sometimes they do great things. Like Patrick Mahomes in the past few seasons, not this season, of course. Past few seasons, he's just been phenomenal. So, of course, when he does things like that, you got to look at him in that sense. But yeah, I think last year definitely could have been Stephon Diggs. I mean, he made it so well in that team, and it was his first season, as you mentioned. So yeah, I definitely agree. It should be more of a open type of award rather than just a quarterback only type thing. All right, another game that I'm going to mention though here is the Cardinals and the Browns. The Cardinals getting a big win in Browns territory, 37-14, the final score here. At the beginning of the season, I thought the Browns were going to be the team that won that division, and yet they've been a little bit disappointing, especially since losing a game like this against a top contender in the NFC. So what do you guys think about the Browns here?
Yeah, I mean, I know we kind of touched on the Browns a little bit earlier when talking about the Chargers game. It's gonna come down to these divisional games. It seems like it every year against the Ravens. I mean, against the Bengals, against the Steelers. I mean, those games are gonna decide who plays further into January and February. I know this again against the Cardinals, who are a very good team, one of the best teams in the NFC presently, but. I mean, yeah, it's the consistency for the Browns. I think, of course, they've had injuries, and that has hampered their success to a degree. But I think that it's going to come down to those divisional games, as it seems to every year, especially in that AFC North division. But looking over kind of to the Cardinals, kind of touched on them as one of the best teams in the NFC. One loss to the Packers, where had it right there on the goal line. AJ Green, what is he doing in the end zone? I know we'll touch on that, but yeah, they've been fantastic team. Kyler Murray, the running game, I think with a lot of questions, especially with the offensive weapons on the outside, but their running game, Chase Edmonds, James Conner, what a resurgence from him. I mean, really setting themselves to be top team in the NFC and possibly overall.
Yeah, and you want to talk, about a potential MVP candidate. Kyler Murray, up until this point in the season has looked like, a top 5, top 3 MVP candidate, in my opinion, at least, leading that Cardinals team to, an undefeated record at this point in the season. Of course, as you mentioned, that would come to an end against the Packers. But, he's looked very good throwing the ball. They got D-Hop, as you mentioned, Edmonds and Connor, I believe, you're looking at one of the best running back duos in the league as it pertains to this year. They've looked great, both of them, and James Conner, really resurging, coming to Arizona from Pittsburgh. I feel like that's really helped him, especially to have, a better offensive line situation than what was in place, obviously, in Pittsburgh. And then the Browns, as we already mentioned, it's been an up and down season for them. And, that was a tough game against the Cardinals, a really good team. And I feel like, the difference in quality just showed in the outcome of that game.
Week 7 of the NFL, the Cincinnati Bengals faced off against the Baltimore Ravens. And in this one, interesting enough, the Ravens went down at home to the Cincinnati Bengals, 41-17, the final score here. I gotta say, this AFC North division is just like crazy, man, because one week you think one team's going to be at the top, the next week another team's taking the reins. Like, what do you guys make of this?
Yeah, I'll let Javon take care of this to start.
When you think about the two best divisions in football, it's always the AFC North and the NFC West. And when you think about the toughest division,
what
it's
about the
AFC
NFC
North.
East? What
Oh,
about
come
that?
on.
Yeah.
Joke of the year right there. No, but I mean, like, my thing is, and this was proven when the Bengals lost last week to the Jets, it's when it comes to division games in the NFL, you can't use them as measuring sticks accurately because it's just the way the NFL works. Certain teams, no matter who's on the roster, will always have another team's number. The Eagles, for example, they can go 2-15 one season. I guarantee you those 2 wins will be one against the Giants, one against the Cowboys. The Bengals are always going to beat the Steelers and the Ravens. It's just going to happen. The Dolphins are always, if they don't beat the Patriots, they're going to play them close. One of the games are going to go to overtime. And this week, the Falcons over the Saints. The Falcons always get the Saints. Last week, the Saints always get the Buccaneers. It's just certain teams have their division rivals number. And that's all that game was. Granted, Marlon Humphrey looked awful, which he has all season. He has not stepped up the way the team has needed him to in the absence of Marcus Peters. I mean, Jamar Chase cooked him out there. It looked like A.J. Green versus Lardarius Webb 2.0. But, I mean, the Bengals are going to be a very competitive team. They're like one piece away on the defense from being a consistent 11-12 win team. But that is a franchise who just does not know how to handle success. And that was shown when they lost to the Jets. Their whole fan base was on Twitter. We're going to the Super Bowl. Like, no, you beat the Ravens, something you do every year with the exception of last year. It's the reason why Marvin Lewis and Andy Dalton never won a playoff game for that team. The franchise, they just don't know how to handle success. So that game was just a weird anomaly. It did expose some flaws with that Ravens secondary, some flaws that Minnesota tried to take advantage of earlier this afternoon. But it was an impressive showing for the Bengals, but once again, just one of those division matchups where it's like, you can't get an accurate read on both teams because it's just part of the weirdness that we love in the NFL.
Oh, man. Ladarius Webb and A.J. Green turning the clock back. I remember that duo going against each other on Madden when I was playing that years back. But yeah, I mean, yeah, this Bengals team and kind of course, Javon heard that division spiel before, no stranger to that. But I kind of comparing them to the Chargers, a team that we discussed just a few moments ago. Young quarterback, some young pieces there. I know maybe the Chargers a bit more developed on the defensive end, but I mean, just kind of looking at the Bengals, the talented offense. I mean, kind of the model in terms of a team that was bad got the high draft picks, got Joe Burrow. Of course, he was injured, but now have a top weapon for him. I know we discussed on the podcast before the season at the draft, drafting Jamar Chase instead of Penei Sewell. It seems like the pick has worked out. Not drafting an offensive lineman, I think it's worked out. And drafting Jamar Chase, a weapon for Joe Burrow. I mean, Jamar Chase, again, as Javon kind of alluded to, one of the best, probably in my opinion, the best rookie so far, possibly. Like Justin Jefferson a year prior. I mean, could win some accolades as well. So I think. You see, when you compare a good young quarterback with the weapons, I mean, the offense is going to be explosive, but it's just been the defense that has struggled.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, Jake, he was also a hell of a fantasy draft for me as well, Jamar Chase. Love the guy.
And I'd give Cincinnati's front office credit for this because a lot of people on the outside looking in were saying draft Penei Sewell mainly because of recency bias. He looked great at Oregon. Joe Burrow, had that nasty injury. And you're like, protect him and all that. But if there was one person who they should have thrown Sewell to the side for, it was Jamar Chase. And the way the Bengals handled it was pretty good, too. They kept that decision in-house. They let Joe Burrow, their franchise quarterback, make the decision. They say, if you're going to be the chef, we might as well give you the ingredients to cook with and let you choose the ingredients to cook with. And publicly, them, showing a faith and putting trust in their young left tackle, Jonah Williams. They said publicly, hey, no, we trust Jonah. We're going to let him start at left tackle and let him continue to develop. And we think Jamar Chase was the best decision for that team. And the confidence that put in Jonah Williams, he's played pretty good this season. Burrow hasn't been the victim of too many blindside hits coming over there off the strong side pass rush. So, just got to give kudos to the Bengals front office for that, especially when 2 years ago, the whole league was trying to paint them as this organization that just stinks and doesn't want to win and saying Joe Burrow should pull a Eli Manning. And look at them now. They've conducted themselves pretty well. And Zach Taylor so far silencing some doubters as a head coach.
And then, boy, you're going to move on to Week 8 where we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers facing the New Orleans Saints. Like you said, the Saints always have the Buccaneers number, and in this one they did 27-36, the final score here. And the interesting thing is Jameis Winston taken out of this game, and yet still Trevor Siemian comes in and wins it for him.
Broncos legend Trevor Siemian getting
exactly.
it done.
Yeah, Broncos
Crazy
legend.
game. I was shocked when I was watching this one in real time, but it was just insane to watch. And yeah, I gotta say I'm not too upset with the result either.
Yes, the Bills fan always loving to take jabs at Tom Brady whenever you can. But yeah, I think this is a key win for the Saints, especially. I mean, ups and downs, losing to the Falcons, which this week as well. We'll get into it. But a big win against the Bucs, and when you're kind of shifting gears to the NFC, we talked about the AFC, kind of how the wild card. I think the Saints are going to be in there, in the mix for the wild card, and a statement win. Of course, the whole the division rival conversation, the division conversation comes into play here. But I think still that's a win. I mean, of course, on the proverbial resume, this isn't college football, but I mean, when you're looking at it in the wild card, something that can hang their hat on, if they can continue to play like that moving forward, the defense is going to have, bend but don't break. They might not be the elite defense. They still have some very good pieces, but I don't think this year they are going to be that top 5 defense. But if their offense, they've got talent around a questionable quarterback position. If they're able to put it together, win some games, they could find themselves in a tight wild card.
Yeah, it's just it's such a shame, that Jameis Winston, unfortunately, the injury, ACL tear, out for the season. Jake, I truly do believe that realistically they would have gotten that wild card spot with Jameis in, at the very least, even contended for the division possibly with the Bucs with him. But without him, it's looking a little bit more bleak. I'm not sold on Simeon as their quarterback, and Obviously, they have Taysom
Taysom
Hill.
Hill.
Who Sean Payton has zero faith in. This is like 3
Yeah.
years straight that he's refused to start Taysom Hill as the next guy up.
Exactly. So, I mean, I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. Their defense is a bend but don't break defense. You know, they've looked very good at some points this year. Then they've had some other questionable performances as well. They got the game-sealing pick against Brady in that game against the Buccaneers. But, for the Saints, I don't know without Jameis if they'll be able to make that wild card push just because of that uncertainty at the quarterback position.
Yeah, I want to say something positive about the Saints here, but every year I try to do that. They give me a reason not to. In this season, it was the main culprit, Cameron Jordan. They beat the Buccaneers, and then he's out here talking spicy. Oh, yeah, Brady's the most accomplished quarterback, but he's not athletic enough to be the GOAT. And it's like, dude, shut up. With the Saints, it's either they talk crap like they are some team that's more accomplished than what they really are, or they complain after they get put out of the playoffs, or they talk crap heading into the playoff game and wind up looking stupid at the end. That's just the one team who I literally cannot find anything positive to say about them. No matter how good Sean Payton looks this year in converting Jameis Winston from the turnover monster that he was to the better quarterback that he is now. It's that locker room, those guys, they just don't have the culture down there in New Orleans to truly be a championship contender.
Yeah, but also I want to mention in Week 8, the Packers and the Cardinals faced off, and it ended up being the Packers defeating the Cardinals for their first loss of the season, 24-21, the final score here. I'd say this was, a great turn of events for the Packers if it weren't for Aaron Rodgers being put on the COVID reserve list right after, but I think it was still a good win regardless for that Packers organization.
Yeah, good win, and love to see the former Eagle Rasul Douglas with the game-winning pick. Yeah, love to see that. But yeah, great win for the Packers. Nate, bend but don't break defense. Just mentioned it with the Saints. That's what this Packers defense really, for as long as Aaron Rodgers has been there, that's really what they've hung their hat on, that bend but don't break approach that has worked so far, and that worked in this game, getting the game winning in the red zone, the interception. AJ Green, I mentioned it on WHIP radio, doing his best zombie impression early there. What was he looking for? I mean, he was not even looking. He was just in his route.
He wasn't looking.
He thought it was a run play. Instead of running his fade route, he thought he was run blocking.
Yeah. I mean, talk about the Bengals with the once a Bengal, always a Bengal. That's how it. That's how it is.
He was the exception to the rule. He faked that injury to get away from Andy Dalton. That is one mountain I'm never coming down from.
Oh man, but yeah, going back to this game. I mean, for the Cardinals, I think this was a playoff game, a pre-playoff game for them Thursday night, and I think that they can learn from it. I know this week we'll don't know if we'll touch on it or not, but Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins out. But they got the job done. So I think that the depth has showed. It's just going to come down to the divisional games. Talked about that one of the best divisions in football, top two. Javon mentioned it. I think that they're going to make the playoffs. It's just, are they experienced enough in the playoffs when that time comes?
Yeah, I think the one thing about Green Bay in that Thursday night matchup, guys, they were without 11 starters, including wide receiver 1, Devontae Adams, wide receiver 2, Allen Lazard, and CB1, Jair Alexander. And they still won that game. You can't make too many reservations about Green Bay or give them too much praise in the regular season because they have been to, 3 straight NFC championship games and have come up short in each one. But that game was just a testament to their resiliency and the greatness of Aaron Rodgers. And then this week, they only lost by 6 to Kansas City without Aaron Rodgers. And then the Cardinals are without Kyler Murray today, and they beat a 49ers team that has been, to call them a disappointment is an understatement. And Jimmy Garoppolo, I've officially come off of his bandwagon. I'm now on the Jimmy's time has passed train. I was defending him. I was making the same argument of, come on, the guy was 2 air yards away from winning a Super Bowl 2 seasons ago, and you're talking about scrapping him. And now, no, it looks like it's time to scrap him. So both of those teams impressive so far.
To wrap it up with the Week 9, I want to talk about the Minnesota Vikings and the Baltimore Ravens. This one going into overtime. As I was drafting up my notes, I actually had to stop and wait for this game to finish because it took so long. But I eventually got it down. It was 34-31 here, final score, with the Baltimore Ravens coming away with the win. I think that this was a great one for the Ravens, actually, now moving up to 6-2, maybe even now leading the AFC.
All you heard for the past 2-3 years, the Ravens can't play from behind. Well, all season, that's what they've done. Kansas City, Indianapolis, and now today. I think Rashad Bateman, the addition of him, I said it, he's going to be wide receiver 1 as soon as next season, and he's steadily on that track. All of his catches so far, except for one today, have been for first downs. The guy is a very good receiver, intricate part in what PJ Fleck's Gophers did down there during his time at Minnesota. I think now with the Rashad Bateman, if Sammy Watkins can stay healthy and be that consistent wide receiver too that we know he can be, and that allows Marquise Brown to just keep using his speed in the slot, and you got, a monster and Mark Andrews eating up yardage at tight end. All the Ravens have to do is, that running game just has to show back up. Lamar Jackson's been carrying it himself, but he would like some help from an actual running back eventually. And for that defense to just, if they can, the secondary's not great. So it's just going to have to be pass rush and a lot of blitz heavy. If Wink Martindale can get back to his creative blitzes and realize he's going to have to rely on that a lot to get through the season and mostly throughout the playoffs, the Ravens can be a dangerous team. But Rashad Bateman was the highlight of the day for me. Even though Marquise Brown was the leading receiver with 116 yards, you can see this offense has another component to it in the passing game, and Greg Roman hasn't been the same stiff that he was, for the past 5, 6, 7 seasons of his NFL career.
Oh, man. No running backs at Le'Veon Bell, Devontae Freeman. I mean, they may be on their last leg, but, they contributed, It may not be rushing champion Le'Veon Bell, but he's doing his part. Not causing disruptions in the locker room. I think that's a plus. But yeah, I think looking on the defensive side, I think that's where the Ravens, especially if they continue moving forward at Lamar Jackson, of course, that offense. Javon, the Ravens insider, giving us the breakdown there. The offense, I don't think they've been putting up points against all the teams so far. It's going to be the defense. Talked about Marlon Humphrey's struggles. Can they maybe acquire maybe another guy in the secondary, or maybe in that linebacking core that can help that defense out come playoff time, come later in the season, win those divisional tighter games that could decide seedings and stuff. So that's what I'm looking for the Ravens moving forward.
Also on that offensive line, Jacob, I think you know where I'm going to go with this. We have a very good mutual friend. You worked with him at the Temple News. I worked with him at Owl Scoop, Dante Colonelli. It seems like every week he's bashing Austin Jackson for the Dolphins. That's me with Alejandro Villanueva for the Ravens. That guy, I think a steel trash can would be better at left tackle than him right now. It's just ridiculous. Him and Big Ben Cheeseburger should have retired together this offseason because they clearly just don't have it anymore.
Couldn't agree more.
Steel trash can. I've seen those put up some good blocks there. Might have to degrade that to a wastebasket. I don't know. Oh, man. Any more games, Justin?
No more games. Just some quick points real fast. So I just want to quickly update on some NFL news. We had Henry Ruggs was released by the Las Vegas Raiders after he was charged with a DUI. He ended up going 156 miles per hour and ran into another car, causing the death of one person. So he will probably never play another snap in the NFL, and it's very unfortunate that he ended up killing somebody and his young career in the process. So
Yeah, he was definitely whipping in the foreign with going with that speed. That's very
Oh,
unfortunate, both for his career and for that person who died. Just another season in the NFL, I guess.
There's a movement going around on social media suggesting his girlfriend should have took the charge for him, so his career can keep going. 'Cause she was in the car next to him, so not the car next to him, in the passenger seat next to him. So yeah, been an interesting past couple days on Twitter.
yeah. I mean, kind of looking at, I mean, what could have been a promising career. Just hope for the best. I think seeing the video from Derek Carr, kind of his support, I fully stand with Derek Carr that he just needs help. He needs someone there with him during this rough time when not only you have this charge that's going against you, but the career that he worked so hard for, probably being stripped away from him for the rest of his life. So I think, Derek Carr, his family needs to be in his corner, I think, now more than ever.
Yeah, just a very unfortunate situation. A bright, young, rising, he had star potential, honestly, as a receiver in the NFL, and just very unfortunate that this ended up happening. I wish, I'm sure he wished he'd go back and maybe have called an Uber or had somebody else, drive him home that night. But, just an unfortunate way for his career to, most likely come to an end.
yes, and then I also want to mention OBJ being released as well on Friday. And I say that there's probably a good chance that we'll see him going to another team, probably within the next week. So I just wanted to get quick thoughts from you guys. Where do you guys think he's going to end up?
I don't know. He's going to go to a contender. He prefers not to be waived. He prefers to clear waivers tomorrow. No, Tuesday at 4. He prefers to clear waivers so he can choose where he signs as an unrestricted free agent. And I think just any team who makes the pitch to him that we can contend and will deliver you the ball. I think the Saints, maybe. Someone said, Mike Florio said tonight that someone told him the Seahawks are his preferred destination. Not sure why. He'd have to share playtime with, Lockett and Metcalf. So I don't think that's the best fit for him. But I think a team like the Saints or the Patriots or the Ravens would be a great fit for him. But it was time for him in Cleveland to divorce. It's just one of those weird things in sports where it just didn't work out. They played better without him, and it's not that he's bad. It's just one of those unexplainable things.
Yeah, I think kind of touching on it too. If I would throw out a team, I think Javon mentioned a bunch there. Might sound like I'm sticking with Stephen A. I know watching some first take clips, he's been saying the Packers, but I think pairing him next to Devontae Adams would be a great addition. Of course, Aaron Rodgers' vaccination status still remains up in the air, but having two perennial number one wide receivers on a good amount of NFL teams, and Devontae Adams, and adding OBJ as a number two, you can mix in, of course, Lazard and Valdez-Scantling as a 3-4. That accelerates them into another at least NFC championship game if you get Rodgers back in the fold with the running backs that they have. So Packers, but yeah, definitely other teams in the mix.
Yeah, it's very interesting situation. As you guys mentioned, it just didn't work out in Cleveland. He, him and Baker, they never really seemed to get that down. His touches were lacking in a lot of games he did play in, and then, like you said, in games he didn't play, they often did better. And I think all the teams that you guys mentioned are potential destinations for him. I think, Packers, Ravens, Saints would all be great fits for him. All those teams I feel like could use a wide receiver with his skill set. So it'll be interesting to see where he does end up coming in these next few days.
That should do it for the football section. As always, great work, Justin. We got one final section on the episode today. Basketball is back, transitioning into the winter sports. The NBA started up. Every team about 9, 10, maybe 11 games. A few more in there as well, guys. What are our first impressions on the NBA season so far?
Well, I mean, I'm going to be a biased Toronto Toronto Raptors fan for a little bit. They're gonna
Toronto
suck. I mean, they're
Raptors.
gonna suck this year. I'm not gonna doubt that. But I mean, like Scotty Barnes, I really like that pick. I think he's been doing pretty well. I kind of want to see him maybe take a bigger scoring role as the season goes on. But what he's been doing now, he's been able to really kind of hone himself in the interior game. He's been shooting a couple threes here and there, but inside the paint, he's done really well. He's had some monster blocks, or not monster blocks, a couple monster blocks, but a couple monster dunks too. I mean, the man is powerful, and I just can't wait to see him develop.
Honestly, I haven't watched or caught too many NBA games, but despite the whole Ben Simmons situations, the Sixers have had a pretty great start to the season. 8-2. They've looked pretty good, and even Joel Embiid, hasn't been scoring the bucket, as much as he did last year in some of these games. But the role players such as Seth Curry, Tobias Harris, and Tyrese Maxey have been playing great, I think, for this team. And, I love to see it. And, just whatever happens with Ben Simmons is going to happen. As long as this team stays focused, they are still a good team and a contending team in that Eastern Conference. So I love what I'm seeing from them.
Let's pump the brakes on this contending thing, okay?
He didn't even say the future Hall of Famer, Furkan Korkmaz.
Let's pump the brakes, okay? They're still not. They still wouldn't stand a chance against Brooklyn, Milwaukee, Miami, Atlanta. Let's just relax, okay? I still don't know if they beat the Knicks in a 7-game series this year. Let's pump the brakes on this contending team.
Right, fair enough.
They don't have a facilitator on the team. They still don't have a power forward. Relax on the Sixers.
I'm just
Should
saying
we start talking about the Lakers? Should we start talking about the Lakers?
You're talking about sorry Russell Westbrook, who needs to just be gone. I mean, goodness, some guys, when they want to come back home to L.A., need to realize, you can come back to L.A., but go to the Clippers. You're not Laker material, okay? That's Russell Westbrook, one of those guys. Should have took his butt to the Clippers because it's just been awful for the Lakers. I mean, out of everybody that made that top 75 list, he far and away has the lowest IQ of anyone on that list. I mean, the gap between him and number 74 is this wide. I mean, he's just as dumb as a bucket of shrimp on the basketball court. The guy in his jump shot form and the way he misses shots.
Took Klay Thompson's spot.
I've just never witnessed anyone miss shots as badly.
I mean, his regular scoring
Westbrook.
night is like 8 for 22, like on a regular basis. So.
Just inefficient. And I haven't seen play this bad on the Lakers. And I've been a Laker fan for a long time. And some you might not recognize the names on this list, but trust me, they bring tears to my eyes when I think of them. Russell Westbrook's performance is the worst thing I've seen from the Lakers since the days of Robert Sacre, Marcelo Huertas, Jordan Hill, and Xavier Henry. It's just awful.
I mean, I understand like shooting your shot, but you don't have to shoot the ball every time, especially when you're not an efficient 3-point shooter as well. Like, that makes my skin crawl.
Sad times.
Oh, man. But, the Warriors, you look at this Warriors team, you've got Steph Curry, phenomenal. Klay Thompson coming back, phenomenal. But it's been the younger players. It's been the Jordan Pooles, Damian Lee. Gary Payton with the throat. Love watching this man. Poster machine. I mean, if they can have that off the bench, it's going to be a top team in the Western Conference. They're going to at least win multiple playoffs. Yeah, I mean, I know again, as Javon mentioned, 16% of the season. Let's not get too...
The Warriors are the one team.
Okay.
The Warriors are the one team I'll allow an overreaction for. Because right now, they have the best defense in the past 18 years. Like, the best defense we've seen in the past 18 years, statistically. And then... look at what Jordan Poole has developed into out of Michigan. I love what he's become. And then you got to consider Klay Thompson and James Wiseman are coming back after Christmas. Like, the Warriors are getting the best Christmas gift anyone's going to get this year. It's ridiculous. And Klay Thompson's coming back with a vengeance. Like, the Warriors were already scary enough. Now Klay Thompson feels disrespected. He hasn't played basketball in about 2 years. Well, NBA ball in about 2 years. Steph's going to have his partner in crime back. Steph got robbed out of MVP last season. Like, the Warriors are legitimately pissed off at the world. That is a very scary thought. It gives me nightmares thinking about it. I'm not a fan of what they're going to do to my Lakers in the playoffs, I'll be honest with you. And I am, in fact, choosing the Warriors to win the NBA championship this year. And there's still a possibility that Moses Moody and Jonathan Kuminga develop into contributors on this team, which will make them even more scary. So yes, the Warriors, overreact to them, buy your stock, place the futures bet on them now. That is a team to be reckoned with.
Man, we'd love to have you back on around the NBA Finals to see how. But yeah, right now you look at the Warriors, the way they're playing. I think definitely a case to make in that Western Conference that has a lot of great teams as well. But I think the Warriors have really stood out the most, especially with the Lakers struggling, the Clippers as well with Kawhi out. I think there's some other teams that, the Denver Nuggets haven't looked as crisp, of course, but Jamal Murray's still out. So yeah, I could definitely believe that right now looking at in the season.
Hey, when Murray comes back, though, look out for the Nuggets. I mean, the last Nuggets game I watched was the game Jokic got hurt against the Jazz. He still was the leading scorer for the Nuggets in that game. Dropped 24 in the first half. Rudy Gobert, the most overrated player in the NBA, is just owned by Nikola Jokic. It's bad. I mean, he has nothing for Nikola Jokic. Jokic eats his breakfast, his lunch, his dinner, and his 2 snacks. It's ridiculous.
Some dessert in there as well.
Some dessert in there. It's a crime what Jokic does to him every time they play. And I pleasantly enjoy watching it because Rudy Gobert is just the definition of an overrated player, and the Jazz are the definition of a regular season team. I hate seeing them get all this attention that they get because they wind up proving me right every year in the playoffs, and that's not going to change anytime soon.
Man, I mean,
I
yeah,
like these hot takes. They're spicy.
Yeah.
I haven't been wrong about one yet. Of the 3 I've said so far on here, I so far have not been wrong about them. So
Oh,
I'm
you
sticking
haven't.
to my gun.
Hey, you're speaking truth, man. I feel like you're speaking truth.
we welcome all of this on the Lunch Hour Sports Podcast. But yeah, Jazz, yes, yes. Regular season overrated. You know what? I'll admit that, the Sixers are in that category as well. Right now, until postseason success is proven otherwise. But yeah, regular season team that plays well, and then the postseason comes around, and completely different style. Of course, the guy who shall not be named has a key role in that for the 76ers. But yeah, I guess the Eastern Conference. I guess kind of finishing up over there. I didn't know if Sam mentioned a few topics. Touch on basketball before we wrap things up. But yeah, the Eastern Conference, I think you look at the Bucks, Hawks, we kind of touched on, just struggling out of the gate. I think that's also due to, looking at the Hawks, Trae Young, James Harden has felt this as well with the Nets, of course, adjusting to the new rules involving fouling and being able to get to your spots. And, no cheap stuff, when excluding the S word for the younger audience out there, that these guys are going to be getting when they get into the paint. So I think that there's been some adjustments there and certain shots now adjusting to that. But yeah, I think sooner or later, I think a team in the Eastern Conference to watch out for is the Washington Wizards. I think what the Wizards did in the offseason got Montrezl Harrell for the bench. He has been great for them. Gafford, Spencer Dinwiddie from the Nets, adding another guard next to Bradley Beal. It hasn't happened since John Wall when he was in it. What you could say is prime, when they've been running around Ish Smith and Raul Neto. Of course, no disrespect to them, but when you have another guy that can get his shot off the dribble like Spencer Dinwiddie can, really helps them out. So I'm seeing them, of course, the Hornets as well.
I think the biggest change and the biggest impact, and you didn't mention it, was replacing Scott Brooks with Wes Unseld Jr. as the head coach. Because Scott Brooks, even since OKC, that's not a guy who's ever been a part of us, who's ever had a system. It's been let the stars run amok and pray for the best. And last season, that looked awful because one of those so-called stars was Russell Westbrook. And if you're going to let him play with absolute freedom, well then, buddy, you just don't deserve to win basketball games. And that's simply what happened down there in Washington last year. No, I like what I've seen from the Wizards. I'm not going to, put them in the upper class of the East per se. But, no, I like what I've seen from them. Kyle Kuzma still looks like a walking mistake, but, he's not being exploited for it so much because he's not in such a concentrated market. So, he's being able to play his game a little more freely. I think the East is so interesting this year because of the storylines and how much things have changed. The Pacers, got rid of their coach after one season, and they look bad this year. The Bulls look good. Lonzo, Caruso, and DeRozan, great additions for them. The Nets, James Harden looks uninterested in the game of basketball without trying to steal cheap fouls. And you've got Trae Young still complaining, yet these are the guys talking about this generation would dominate every other era. No, simply put, they wouldn't because they're too soft. They're not as skilled. I don't care what anyone says. Today's players not as skilled. There's guys like Alan Crabb who got paid 4 years, $75 million just to sit in the corner. You can get away with that now. You had to be more of a complete player in each generation before this. And you had to be more physical, something a lot of guys today aren't. What else in the East? And just the Nets still, they don't have enough size or defense to be able to compete. Miami has bounced back. They've added Kyle Lowry, a veteran presence. Milwaukee, Drew Holiday returning from injury. Dante DiVincenzo missed a good part of last season. He's going to get, added into the fold pretty soon. And the Knicks, Kemba Walker and Evan Fournier, adding more of a scoring dynamic to the Knicks without them losing any defensive intensity. So the Eastern Conference this year, really something to watch out for. And then out West, we know what the Western Conference is. I think there's just one team everyone's waiting on, and that's really the Pelicans. Will they ever get to that point? Who knows? Zion Williamson looks like he doesn't want to be there. And right now he's had another injury setback, and he looks fat as I don't know what again. He's probably like 285 right now. He looks like Charles Barkley present day, not Sixers Charles Barkley.
Someone say Boris Diaw.
Yeah,
Boris Diaw.
And I think Charles Barkley said it best, because Zion Williamson is the second coming of Charles Barkley. He needs a Moses Malone in his ears. Something players today obviously aren't receptive of. Karl Towns got Jimmy Butler kicked out of Minnesota because he didn't want to get pushed hard, and Jimmy Butler wound up, almost going to the finals with the Sixers and going to the finals with the Heat. But Zion Williamson needs a Moses Malone to tell him, hey, buddy, you're fat and lazy. You need to get in shape and be dedicated to your craft. And because him and Brandon Ingram could be a very good duo down there in New Orleans, a city that needs a reason to bring their fans out because that's football country down there. And the Pelicans, if Zion doesn't stay healthy, the city of New Orleans is in danger of losing their basketball team to a better market, quite frankly. Why wouldn't New Orleans jump at the chance to relocate? If Minnesota doesn't get to Seattle first, why wouldn't New Orleans take that, opportunity? The Kings, I think they need to hurry up and go to Vegas. They should have took that opportunity back in 2012 when they had the chance and they didn't. So maybe New Orleans, the Pelicans explore that. But it all comes down to Zion Williamson. He's got to stay healthy and stay conditioned.
Yeah, and I know Zion's weight has been an issue or a topic of conversation since he's been drafted into the NBA. Right now he's currently listed as 6'6", 285. That's a very big boy, essentially. And now with his right foot fracture, he's not really doing anything for the Pelicans right now. I think that people want to see Zion become a star in the NBA. They want to see him become a superstar, but he kind of has to maybe either take a different approach, maybe get on a different training regimen. Because in college, like when he was with Duke, he could be swinging his way anywhere and he'd be just dandy. But in the NBA, it's more endurance based. It's a longer season, and you're going to need to be in some of the best shape of your life if you want to compete and be at that superstar level.
Yeah, I just want to give one quick shout out though to the guy who was drafted second behind Zion, John Morant. He's had a great start to the season,
Yes,
and I think
sir.
that Memphis team looks very well in the West at the current moment in time.
He got robbed out of an all-star appearance last year. I mean, Mike Conley got it out of sympathy, and Mike Conley was the farthest thing from an all-star last season. John Morant deserved it, and I'm glad he's on that revenge tour this season. That was just, just a crime what happened to him last season. And I like how he's learned on the defensive end, because remember, his rookie year, they made the playoffs down in the bubble. And I'm pretty sure anyone who watches the NBA knows exactly where I'm going with this. C.J. McCollum one game, I'm talking for the 3 minutes straight, just was walking John Morant down and talking his trash to him too. And we haven't seen John Morant be on the receiving end of a butt whooping since. So yeah, like you said, shout out to the number 2 pick in that draft.
Great stuff. I mean, a bunch of storylines, Western and Eastern Conference. Super excited to see how they play out the rest of the year. One note before we close. Peter, who couldn't be with us, talking about his favorite NBA player, Zion Williamson. That will do it for today's episode of the Lunch Hour Sports Podcast. Thank you to Javon Edmonds for stopping by, special guest today. If you would like more of Javon, he does it all, but he also does a podcast, Everybody Loves Sports, on Twitter. Go check him out. Follow him on Twitter, Javon Edmonds. He's got it all the content that you would like. Thank you, everyone, for listening. You can find future episodes on YouTube and Spotify. And thank you, Anchor, for sponsoring this video. Once again, thank you, everyone, for listening to the Lunch Hour Sports Podcast.